How you doing there, Troy?
Doing great, Chris. Good to see
That's
you again.
awesome. Yeah, it's great to have you back on and be back with you and do some live and hopefully we can get some education out there. I think this kind of start. I think a lot of times when we're looking at investments or we're looking at opportunities, it's all about building wealth. But a lot of times I think we forego protecting the wealth that we have. So I'm really excited to kind of jump into today's topic, especially tapping into your expertise. Because again, being in the tech industry and dealing with this from, I don't know, for what, the last 20 years. Me
Mhm.
being the CEO of a very large company where we had to put tons of things in place to protect the well-being of our clients as well as the well-being of the business. Super excited to kind of go over. So just before we kind of dive into that, just kind of again, we are Rise Capital, primarily women-owned, which is kind of cool. Uh, just pushing that diversity envelope. What we do is we deliver investment opportunities in both debt and equity, in both commercial and residential real estate space. Honestly, just at the end of the day, just empowering people to kind of really take control of their destiny and take control of where they want to build their financial, what they want their financial future to look like. So again, we're all about inclusion, diversity, and really bringing in client focused strategies to our clients and our investors out there. So um, I say let's just jump in and kind of go over maybe some of the things that you see, Troy, that can really protect individuals, especially in today's day and age of technology.
Yeah, there's a myriad of things, and the struggle with the security is that we're always running into not only better ways to secure yourself, but also it's kind of a game for these people out there that are targeting, especially people in the financial industry, of how to get around those new measures and circumventing that kind of thing. And it's an ongoing battle, especially as we move into this new age of artificial intelligence and are introducing some new challenges into this. But what we primarily want to kind of cover today is just the basics, a few things that we can do just to protect ourselves in general from that are the easiest to. I mean, the easiest to address right away, you could say. Right. One of the big ones that we see is that when you've got a cell phone on you, you have internet connection pretty much anywhere you go, and you're out in you're in the public. Well, I guess in the public space, so to speak, right? Is that you'll jump on like a Wi-Fi at a coffee shop or something like that, and you don't really realize that there may be other people in that coffee shop that now have access to your devices. And an easy way to protect yourself from that is using what's called a virtual private network, or a VPN. And what that does is sets up a network within the network directly to the other end and encrypts it so that people can't access that. Are you familiar with VPNs at all, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have too much experience with it, but I mean, we use it. We use it for a lot of it's just masking your IP address, so other hackers and I mean, just honestly protecting yourself. The one cool thing about I think about VPNs is, and I think a lot, I think well, I definitely didn't know this. Like when I think about a VPN, I think about putting it on my computer. I never really thought about it having it on my cell phone. But
Mhm.
you definitely have the technology out there that can have it added to your cell phone. Again, just giving you that extra um, layer of protection, and having again once you're on a public network, like everything you transact over that network is literally visible to everyone. Anybody that gets on, they can technically see exactly what you're doing, especially if you're like I would say one of the big things is like don't log into your bank account when you're on a public network like that. Like that's just don't do
Yeah,
that. Um,
e- ex-
don't yeah,
exactly.
even honestly logging into anything because then you expose your username and your password to someone being able to capture that data and use it in the future.
Yeah, and I think a lot of things that people don't really consider in the public space, right, is that they'll join like a public network and not even think about it, right? But then the next time they are near a network that has a similar name, or they go to another Starbucks or something, they'll automatically join that network and not even realize that they're exposing themselves to bad actors.
Yeah, I
So,
think so VPNs are very important. If you guys don't have it, do you by any chance have like any recommendations on like a good VPN? Because there's a ton of VPN services out there, and I
there
know at the
are.
end of the day it's technically what you're using the VPN for, but just for normal protection, what is there like one that you would recommend?
There's some big ones out there. You have like NordVPN, Private Internet Access is another organization. Both of these do a great job. They're well known. They have a lot of funding behind them to be able to put the R&D in place in order to be able to make sure that they're updated and they're educated on the latest threats that are out there. So either one of them is a great option. A lot of times you can even configure those when you do put them on your devices, that when you join a public network, that'll automatically connect you to the VPN. So it takes the stress out of it, I guess, of knowing whether or not you're secure. Now, on a cell phone carrier, like if you're not on a Wi-Fi network or on a well, that I guess that's another thing to bring up. Now that I think of it. So if you're on your carrier's network and you're using your data plan, that's encrypted as well, and so it's not as big of a risk doing your transactions and stuff over the carrier network. It's when you get on a Wi-Fi network. The other thing that you need to be concerned with is, most people are not aware of this, that Bluetooth is also an access into your phone, and they can jump in there and they can also get access to your data in there as well. So so you got your headphones in, you're listening to music, all that kind of stuff, but you are also opening yourself to other access through your Bluetooth and through not only wireless but through or Wi-Fi, but through your Bluetooth as well. So something to keep in mind, and typically VPNs won't protect you from that, but usually with Bluetooth you only need to worry about local networks. So again, financially you want to be very careful on your exposure to exposing yourself to bad actors within your environment around you. And another thing that you can do to kind of protect yourself is people looking over your shoulder at either your phone or at your computer. They do have these aftermarket screen protectors that you can put on your devices that will only allow people to see the screen if you're directly in front of it. So somebody looking in from the side, they just see a black screen. And so that's a really good way as well. It prevents people from holding their phone and taking pictures of maybe sensitive documents or sensitive accounts that you might have open, and then being able to later then go in and trying to access it. Which I guess kind of brings us, to one of our next points, right? Is having strong passwords. How many people do you know? I mean, I worked in the IT industry, and I can't tell you how many people I knew who just had Post-it notes with their passwords all over it, like bank account. They'd label it that, and then they'd put their password right there. They put their login password for their device, and everything just all around their screen so that they wouldn't forget it. Right? Have you encountered much of that as well with the
Oh yeah,
executive level?
definitely. You see it all over the place. I mean, I would be somewhat guilty of that as well. I wouldn't. I definitely. I did have it on post-its, but I would hide it in my desk. But I would never do it. I would never do it on something that's uh, like extremely critical. It would typically be because there's hundreds and hundreds of passwords. Every site is going to try and protect themselves against some type of even social media, right? Your social media accounts all have passwords. There's a ton of things you got to remember. So I mean, there's definitely really good tools out there. Troy and I were just joking before we actually jumped on the live. and we just looked to see what is the most common password. I think it said there was 40 million. It was some outrageous number. Most common password is 1234556. So please, if you're doing anything, do not use 1234556 because someone will steal your information. I can guarantee you that. I would say the other thing that I commonly see, I've seen it with my father a lot, and I think I was guilty of it as well. Especially earlier on in when passwords just started coming more to fruition, is having like one password, even if it is somewhat difficult, having one password and you use that for everything, because that's going to expose
Yeah.
you to a lot as well. There's a lot of good services out there that can help you generate password. I mean, Google has its own password generator, and there's other
Mhm.
password generators out there that can keep all your passwords secure. I mean, on that, the do you have any like recommendations for like some type of strong password security
So
system?
so probably the best recommendation I had is that you want to have your password 6 words long. So whether that's a phrase, whether that's one thing somebody recommended is like take a step back, look at your desk, and from left to right, write down a word of whatever object you're seeing on your desk, and that way it helps you remember it, but nobody else would know that, right? And so you might have like your pencil holder, your stapler, your tape, your monitor, uh, your printer or your phone right next to it, right? But if you put all those down in order, it's going to be very difficult for these brute force attackers to be able to break that because it is so long, and especially if you put like spaces between the or even dashes between the between each word, it's going to make that even more difficult, right? The industry has kind of put something in place to help mitigate the people that just use the same password on everything. And what that is called two-factor authentication. So it's usually like that little code that they'll send you on your phone, where your bank's like, you put in your username and password, and they'll say, okay, we just sent a code to your phone, put that code in. And so what that two-factor authentication is it's basically a random number generator that's based on a key that some manufacturer had created for that particular series. And what happens is that that key is ever revolving. So by adding that to your password, it's basically creating a random password that's unique to each every single one of your logins. And so if you don't have two-factor authentication enabled on your financial accounts, I recommend you do that right now. because it is very important, and it prevents people from being able to just log into your account. Like sometimes I'll see a request for my code to pop up on my phone, and I'm like, well, I didn't initiate that, right? But the nice thing is, if I don't give that to anybody, that's as far as it goes. They didn't get any further into my accounts than that, right? And so it kind of goes along with, and we'll dive a little bit deeper into this in a future webinar here, is just making sure that you protect yourself by not giving that code to anybody. Like if somebody calls and asks you for a 6-digit code, or like, hey, I just need to verify your identity, I'm going to send you a code real quick, you tell me what that code is. Chances are they're probably trying to log into your account, and they need that code to complete the login. And so you don't ever want to give that code to there. You don't ever want to give any personal information over the phone to anybody. If they call and you ask about it, or they're asking you about it, if your bank calls and is asking you for information, you say, I'm going to call you right back. You hang up and then go to the website for that your bank has, and get the customer support number there and call them directly and ask them if they're calling you, and verify that they do indeed require that information. And that's a good way to protect yourself. But they're going to ask, who knows what they're going to ask for. Like I had one guy call me up, and he was asking me, hey, I just need to, this is Troy Powell, right? And I'm like, it depends on who's calling. And he's like, I just need to verify some some information from you. And he started trying to ask me some very personal things, like what your mother's maiden name was, and what your where you grew up and that kind of stuff. And I'm like, I'm not answering any of those questions, because as soon as you do verify that information, they can then go and use that to be able to access your accounts. Because if they don't have that two-factor authentication and they're on the phone with customer support, they can actually bypass that two-factor authentication by giving them some very personal information and validating that information with them that they wouldn't normally be able to get to using the public internet.
I think maybe because multi-factor authentication is it's been around for a while, but I think a lot of people don't fully understand what exactly it is. And even because there's different types of multi-factor authentication. So can you maybe just kind of go through real quick, like some of the more typical ones? I know the SMS is probably the most typical one, but maybe go over a few different ones and maybe
which ones are preferred.
Yeah, which ones are preferred, and then like how is it typically, again, for someone who doesn't know, put it into the concept of someone who doesn't know it at all. Like, how do they get that access to, or signed up, or how do they even assign that to their bank account?
Okay, well, let's kind of go over it real quick. A couple of the different options. So them sending a code either to your email, to your phone, which is through SMS. Another one is called an authentication app, where you have like Google Auth or LastPass Authenticator. And what these apps do is it allows you to basically keep all of these keys on your device, right? And be able to generate those codes whenever you need to generate them, instead of a company actually having to send them to you. That's another way to make sure that there's no middleman in there, right? And so essentially, what you want to do is, if you're going to set this up on any of your devices, in fact, actually on your, with your phone, your Face ID is actually a two-factor authentication for your phone as well, right? Google, and I think there's a couple of other places, are starting to use biometric, which is either your face or your fingerprint, that type of thing, as access as well for that two-factor authentication. It's giving you that option now. And what you do is you want to go into your, whatever it might be on your bank account, once you log in, you want to go into your settings and look under security, and two-factor authentication should be in there. And when you do go to enable it, it should give you a couple of different options of what that looks like, either SMS or whether it's email or whether it's a authentication app. And usually they'll have instructions when you enable it to walk you through how to set that up on your device and what you'll need to do. And then once you have that set up, it'll verify it with you through that medium that you set up. And then from there on out, every time you try to log into that account, it's going to want to use that two-factor authentication to validate that it is actually you. And so you can do it. I highly recommend you do this with all your email platforms, right? Gmail, Outlook, MSN, any Gmail or any email program that you're using, because since that is a way to validate who you are, a lot of times they'll send you an email with a code in it in order to verify who you are. And so if somebody gets access to your email account, even though your bank may have two-factor authentication enabled on it, they may still be able to access your bank accounts because you didn't have two-factor on your email. And so any financial institution, anything that's got sensitive data on it, you want to make sure that you enable two-factor authentication as just another layer of security there. Again, like Chris had mentioned earlier, you definitely want to make sure that you do make unique passwords. That will make it even more difficult for them to access it, right? And so talking about bank accounts, that kind of brings us to that next section, routing and account numbers, right? What kind of security do we need to place around that, Chris?
I think the biggest thing, because you're going to have to, especially dealing with different firms like our firm, or I mean, if you have to wire money back and forth, there's going to be often times where you're going to have to give out your routing and account numbers, and there's definitely scams out there that can take your routing and account number and then drain your account. So you want to make sure, ultimately, at the end of the day, because you can send secured emails where exactly like Troy was mentioning before, there's like a password. Google has it. I believe it's like right there at the bottom of Google. You can send a restricted email so that someone needs a password to open up that email, and then you can send your account numbers and routing numbers that way. I think the biggest thing at the end of the day is if you're sharing the information, which a lot of times you'll have to share the information, is make sure that it's someone that you know and you trust. Troy mentioned it earlier. Don't ever give out your information if someone's just calling you. Now, if someone's calling you and you know exactly who they are, then that's different. But if someone calls you, a bank, any kind of financial institution, don't ever give that information out, because again, they can take that information. I can't tell you how many different clever schemes and scams there are out there that I've seen through um, just my career that I had. So I mean, anything that you can do to protect yourself. Again, we're out there trying to build wealth, and our goal is to help you get there and attain that wealth. But on the opposite spectrum of it, we wanted to make sure, again, this is not the typical webinar or live that you would normally have from a capital raising group that is helping you get investments. But we want to make sure it's a holistic journey for you, and that you're protecting yourself at the end of the day as well, and trying to give that information. We've seen it. I've seen literally $500,000 get taken because they wired it to someone and they had the wrong wiring instructions on there. In my previous career, we had almost $1 million through phishing that wasn't from us. It was from another company posing to be us. The other company, again, they got hacked in. And then the weird wiring information was transpired. Account information was given. And literally, and it honestly, this is the instant that I'm referring to. It was almost 2 months worth of our company sending payments to a fraudulent company because the other company that we thought we were sending payments to got hacked. And so it happens every single day. I don't know exactly what the number is, but I guarantee you it's in the upper billions that are taken just through people not protecting themselves enough. And as if we can give you that information, and just like sharing a few tidbits, two-factor is huge. If you're not doing it, start it. Strong passwords is huge. And again, just protecting your information, protecting your social security number, protecting your bank information, protecting your routing number, all super secure. And if you're going to deal with somebody again like us and you have to give the information, ask how secure the systems are, and what are we doing to protect you from having your information taken. So it's super important. I think a lot of times people don't necessarily think about it. It is something that happens in the back of the back scenes of a company. It's not really exposed too much, but you hear about it, right? There was Target got hacked a few years ago, and that was huge. And so it happens, and you want to make sure that you're doing whatever you can on your side to protect whatever wealth that you've generated over your lifetime.
Yeah. And we will go a little bit deeper into this subject here in a future webinar that we're doing. We'll be talking about, well, is it a good idea to put a text document on your desktop with all your passwords in it? It's not, by the way. That's a little spoiler there, but what you can do to protect yourself from
like so funny, that's exactly what my father had. My father had a document on his computer with every single one of his passwords on it.
And so it was named passwords, right?
Yes. It was the same passwords over and over again.
Yeah, and the place to go in order to be able to use all those passwords too, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll be talking about how malicious devices can actually access your system, what you can do to protect yourself there. We'll go a little bit more into email, text, and phone safety. And there's also I did touch on a little bit when we started about artificial intelligence. In fact, just in the news this past week, there was a A deep fake. I don't know if you're familiar with that at all, Chris, but a deep
Oh
fake
yeah,
is
I
where they
am.
can
It's
actually
it's
fake
the
somebody
AI.
else.
Yep.
So they
Yeah.
had a deep fake Zoom meeting with a member of this company, and over in China, and they were able to steal $30 million. They were convincing enough to be able to convince the accountant in that company to transfer $30 million out of the company. And so some of the tips that they gave in the news article was, if you're on a Zoom conference and they're asking about this personal information, ask them to wave, because the AI doesn't do fingers very well. And and they're just going to be a talking head, that they'll have their facial expressions and all of that, but they don't do hands, and they don't do stuff in the background. And so having them move something in the background, that kind of thing, is kind of a way to help protect yourself from that. But I've also heard of issues where people have got calls from relatives on an AI voice on their phone, asking them, "Hey, I'm stuck on the side of the road. I need, I need some credit. I don't have a credit card with me. I need to get your credit card so that I can, I'll pay you right back, because the tow truck's here and I need him to be able to be able to haul my car off." Right. So there's scams that are coming that might sound like a loved one, and there's going to be some ways that you need to some measures you need to put in place in order to protect yourself against that here in the future as well. So
So we
just
do have
thought-
one. Well, we have quite a bit of comments. How you guys doing, Bobby and Jensen out there? But I'm going to show one of the comments. More of a question. It's kind of a question. So, how do you protect yourself against spoofed URLs if your network is hijacked?
Okay, so the actual URL itself is it's a little difficult, right? If they do get into your systems, and they're a bad actor within your system, right? There's several layers of security that have already broken down at that point, right? And if you suspect that there might be some that it might have gotten hijacked, uh, it's very difficult to tell, right? There are plenty of times where they'll try to spoof the URL and redirect you. So if for example, like we see it more with email than we do with really anything else, is it'll look like a valid email or URL in the email, or they'll have a button or something that you click, and it looks like they'll spoof the name of the email. But if you click on the email address that's being sent to you, you can look at the actual email address that it's being sent from. And sometime it might be Microsoft@gmail.com, right? It's not a legitimate thing. So you report that as phishing right away, get rid of it, right? As far as them getting onto somebody's, into somebody's website and taking control of it, it's and then redirecting the traffic from that company's website to a different form. You can look at the URL and just make sure that form is still coming from the same URL that you originated from. For example, like if you went to, we'll just use Microsoft, because they have a lot of problems with this. But anyway, so if you go to like Microsoft.com, they want you to fill out or we'll say like a bank, Chase Bank or something like that, right? You go in there, you go to log in, and the URL changes to something that is no longer Chase. Like if it's Chase, with a Z or something at the end, which is pretty common, they'll do that to where you look at it and your brain says it's okay, but it actually isn't. You just want to make sure that you do verify that. If you have a question, like if they are requesting something and and it does look a little bit fishy, reach out to their customer support and talk to them directly, and they can usually help walk you through if there is an issue, or you might be able to identify it for them, and then they can address it right away.
Yeah, I think we can probably dive into this topic a little bit more and look at maybe the SSL certificates and kind of
Exactly.
go through that in more detail. I think honestly, at the end of the day, it's more of what you said. I mean, it's hard, but I know there's different platforms out there that can help you monitor it. But really understanding what the URL is, or even the emails. I mean, again, that's normally how you're going to pick up phishing emails. is the email address doesn't look right, or it's not something you would typically recognize. So we can definitely get into that when we have a more deep dive into this. But I think at the end of the day, it's super important just getting some of this information out there, and hopefully there's like one or two tidbits that you can make some changes today to protect yourself for tomorrow. So I enjoyed my time with you, always learning a bunch of different things on the tech side. Again, I was not in the tech industry, but again, ran a very large company. So I had to sort of learn it, and definitely learning every single day from Troy. So I appreciate you spending the time, us getting together, and just love learning from you, man.
Yeah, and check out the comments. We have other people in the comments that are also answering your questions as well. Great information there from Bobby Sigmiller about network segmentation and monitoring. That also does help a lot. It's usually if you get hacked, pretty quickly. Most companies have a really great IT security team, and they're going to be running phishing testing on their own employees. They're going to be running. They're going to make sure that they're covered on their network side. They're going to be watching it closely, so you can feel pretty confident with with the companies that they'll deal with it right away, or that they'll help you recover if anything happens. So.
Did you pass on those phishing emails, or did you fail? Or were you the one sending out the phishing emails?
Oh no, I was the one sending out the phishing emails.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I was the one being tested. I passed.
Yeah,
I passed 100%.
You passed.
Of the time.
That's good.
Yeah. Well, again, thanks
good.
everybody. Thanks everybody out there that joined. I enjoyed myself, Troy. Hopefully, everyone else got some golden nuggets from Troy and imparted a lot of his wisdom. Till next time.
Well, one more thing is we're happy to sit down on the phone and talk to you about any of your financial goals. Please reach out to us with partnerwithrise.com, and we'll have a meeting with you, and we can talk about not only your financial goals, but if you have further questions on this kind of topic, we'd be happy to talk with you about that as well.
Yep, absolutely. All right. If there's nothing else, you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. You as well, Troy.
Great. Thanks. Take care, Chris.
Bye-bye.